In today's episode, we're going to discuss the importance and influence that you have as a father because without you in the presence of your child, a lot of shit can go wrong. And we'll continue with ways to begin negotiating for custody with your ex. And I'm not exaggerating here when I say that this video, it can turn the course of the divorce in your favor, saving you time and thousands in legal fees. But full disclosure, must be done correctly. So let's start revving that engine. In the 1920s, the maternal custody movement came into popularity, saying that single mothers should always get the child, 100% custody. And you got to remember, this was 100 years ago. There was no such thing as the father's rights movement. But mother's rights movement would argue that mothers, they were naturally better parents. They were more caring, more nurturing, and hence this nurturing would just naturally rub off on their children. Been 100 years, been millions of lives, been several generations, been way too long. What are the results? Today, nearly a quarter of U.S. children live in single-parent homes. 80% of single parents are moms. 86% of all children of single parents live with the mom, implying that single moms tend to have more children per household than single dads do. Now look at me. Strongest predictor of whether or not your child ends up in prison is not your neighborhood, it's not poverty, but you. Your presence as a dad. You're a necessity, you're not a luxury. Here's the results for single moms. 80% of prison inmates come from single mother homes. 72% of juvenile murders come from single mother homes. 60% of rapists come from single mother homes. 70% of teen pregnancies are from single mother homes. Single moms create single moms and absent dads. 90% of welfare recipients come from single mother homes. Want more? If your child grows up without a father, they're 5 times more likely to commit suicide, 10 times more likely to fall into drug abuse, 9 times more likely to drop out of high school. Growing up without a father could permanently alter your brain structure. Children tend to be more aggressive, depressed, and frankly, they grow up poor without a dad. In the United States, there are nearly 16 million children living without the presence of a father. 16 million children that are 20 times more likely to commit a crime and end up in prison. Now, I can't in good faith address this matter without mentioning the underrepresented minority population. Nearly 2/3 of African American children grow up in single mother homes, 2 out of every 3. But after controlling for single motherhood, the difference between black and white crime, the rate disappears. This isn't a father's rights issue anymore. It's a children's rights issue. It's a national crisis, a civil rights issue for those who can't represent themselves. Your presence is vital, and if you're fighting for custody, that single mom of yours, your ex, she's either the victim of absentee dad or she's laying the foundation for the legacy of absentee dads, and that's unacceptable. As a divorce coach, I hold many different hats. If you could think of it, that's what I do. Even if it's never occurred to you, that's what I do. A key part of my job is to save you time, money, and agony. And while not a selling point, me coaching you often pays for itself by avoiding the need to take this to trial or further back and forth between attorneys and in negotiating tactics. Because that college fund that's going to your kids should not be given to your attorney's new car. And attorneys, they have a very good way of promising you the world until you hire them. So before it gets escalated, speak to me. But here's what usually happens. Out of nowhere, your wife, she tells you that she wants a divorce, thereby leaving you confused and disoriented. Now, a common question we guys ask is, what about the kids? What's gonna happen to them? Here you are in one of the most tumultuous time of your life, and you're putting her in a position of further strength by asking her, your future adversary, to make decisions about the future of your kids. But you can learn a lot about a person just by listening to them alone. If she says, the kids will stay here while you go to your parents' house, she's showing you her cards. She's either underestimating you or she thinks you are a complete idiot because you haven't done your homework. But things, they just don't work that way. Right now, with all the shit that you got going on, it's unreasonable for her to expect you to make any kind of decision. So this is what you do. First, and this is especially true if you're a homeowner, don't you leave. You don't fucking leave the home. You let beautiful Katie know that although she may have been thinking about this for years, this is all new to you and that you need to register this. Chances are that she's gonna stop the conversation then, but if she doesn't, don't answer her request to go anywhere. Just say the truth, that you're brokenhearted and you need to collect yourself. Then you find a comfortable place to sleep in your home, and if it's your own bed, fair enough. Don't ask about your kids in custody. That's gonna come later and it's gonna come from you. But know that you better get your shit together, because there's two things that I've learned very quick as a divorce coach. We talk a lot of shit about kicking ass and making money, but when it comes to it, we're pussies. Pusetas. Change your fucking paradigm, because you're not fighting for your rights. Your ass is fighting for your kids' rights to have a good future. There's civil rights, so get that straight. And through me and others, get educated as to what you can realistically expect as an outcome. For instance, here's a look at how much the average dad gets according to the state that they live in. Depending on state, it's 50-50 or less. Look at yours, and the link is right in the description section of this video. Excluded from this study are the percent of dads that did not fight for custody or those in any part of the penal system. So you have a DUI, you're not included. These are regular Joes without any criminal record fighting for their kids. If you're from Florida, expect to get 50% or 183 days per year, versus California, 32% or 120 days per year. So now, let's get to negotiating. Remember, you're not negotiating with your wife. You're separating her. You're negotiating with your future ex, and she's a whole different person, because both my exes, they surprised me. My first was how calculating and organized she was. What did my first in is what usually does others in, arrogance. But she was well ahead of me. As for my second, I just overestimated her. When negotiating, most people say to bite your tongue and speak last, but that depends on you. Me, for instance, if I'm prepared, I bite my tongue, but I prefer going first. That way I set the tone, and as I've had different scenarios prepared, and I respond accordingly. In a more formal setting, like court, the petitioner goes first. They make you an offer thinking it's Christmas. You do this back and forth. And if you're any good, you come up with a creative settlement, and that's it. Not when you have kids. You be first. You be prepared. You set the tone. Let her know that you'll be taking an active role here. Chances are that all your life as a father that you've taken a passive role. You don't get that choice here. You have more to lose. No bullshit here. Instead of watching videos on how to get your ex back, you need to start learning negotiating tactics while at the same time covertly preparing for war. You need to watch videos like these and others, and instead of calling your insurance company to find a good therapist, you need to click your life into gear and schedule a consultation with me. It's free. Not someone else, but me, because this is what I do. My job is to avoid you going to war, but preparing you for one, not through video, not through pamphlets, but through practicing and repeated role playing, because I don't lose. To understand where I'm coming from, you need to know that when it came to my first divorce, in the beginning, I did everything wrong because, like you, I was scared of losing my kids. But I got my shit together and I stood up to her. My first wife and I, we're cool today. I mean, she's a good person. She has a good heart. And I'm always going to love Tammy as the mother of my children. She'll always be family to me. She's got a famous temper. And there was a time where we went to war. She's calculated and she started off kicking my ass. It was a wake-up call for me, a learning experience in both law and what I was made of. Something I learned was that family law attorneys have the imagination of an Intel 386 computer built in 1985. They're slow, clumsy, can't think for themselves. You have to tell them what to do, and to them, just doing their job it's a win. They're if-then people with their wait-and-see attitude, and that's going to cost you money in the long term. Yeah, she's not letting me see them. Okay, we'll draw up a stipulation. First, it's been 6 months, Carolyn. Can't I just pick them up? I mean, is that considered kidnapping? And second, what's a stipulation? Renee, you have every right to pick them up, but just know that if you do that, you could piss off the judge or her, as if she wasn't pissed off already. And second, a stipulation, it's an agreement. So $450 later, the stipulation for her to play by the rules was written up, and we agreed that she was going to agree to our agreement. I played by the rules, but in turn, that ended up costing me more than money. And I was feeling like you're probably feeling, like a lost puppy. So remember this adage. You don't know who you marry until you divorce them. And that means you got to start doing your research. Play it intelligently. You got to prepare for a fucking war. That custody map I showed you, again, it's in the description section. It's by Custody Exchange. And they're a damn good website. Our Family Wizard, they get a bad rap, but they too have good resources. If you're in California where the average custody is 32%, 50% would be ideal, right? And that's what you're going to fight for. But 32% would probably be your worst case scenario in negotiation because zero custody, that's just not realistic. I know you're scared and you're afraid of that, but zero, that's unacceptable. So you got to get on the ball and start doing your research and working towards this. Now, that said, although some states are 50-50, that doesn't mean you're off the hook. The most contemptuous of custody battles come from 50-50 states. It's a fucking civil war here with nothing civil about them. Your ex throws some bullshit, illegal tactics, or you do something that's stupid or slandering. It becomes the norm. On a few occasions, I've seen attorneys, they give wrong legal advice and turning into some catastrophic event. So start asking questions. Mine, for instance, my ex, she could have moved to the Bay Area where she's from. So I had to put the stipulation that she couldn't move to another county without my permission. So watch out for loopholes. But then again, know and rest that for the most part, 0% custody is not going to happen. And that's one reason why my coaching program, I don't charge by the hour. Not even for consultation, because things like this are easy to miss. I give my clients my direct number. Know your rights by talking to a few different divorce attorneys, because attorneys, they aren't like physicians. Physicians, they treat according to your diagnosis, but family law attorneys, they practice law according to their personality rather than the law. So just like everyone has different personalities, you're going to hear some different answers and approaches. Go to different websites on best custodies for single parents. I already mentioned a few of them, but look them up because they have some really good custody schedules. The 232 custody, the 3443 custody, the split custody. There's a whole bunch of them, and they all explain why one may be better than the other. So you did your homework, and now it's time for the conversation. And it could go hundreds of different ways, and that's what I prepare my clients for. We practice, and we practice, and we practice. And I tell you this, I could be a real bitch of an ex-wife. I get them ready for the conversation, and I want to start off like this. Katie, when you have a second, I need your undivided attention. Have notes with you. That way you can have something to compare and have your thoughts organized. I've been thinking a lot about the kids, how the divorce is going to affect them, and I wanted to see the best way to go about this so that their life is interrupted as minimal as possible. They need to stay our priority during this time. And I was doing some research into co-parenting and custody options, and a few of them, they stood out for various reasons. And I wanted to get your thoughts on what would fit for all of us to see what's best. Now, should you get interrupted, it's probably because it's all too real right now, and it's all hitting her. It does not mean that she's regretting her decision. It just means that she's ashamed. And then again, who isn't feeling shame, especially during these types of conversations? I mean, you're agreeing to a major defeat here. Don't push it. If she's not ready, just leave the notes, the written ones, notes that you're willing to share with her. That way she could look at them throughout the day or whenever. Okay, maybe you're not ready, but here are some notes. Look through them so that we at least have a starting point next time we talk. But this is the one thing, neither of us can afford to get wrong, because just look through them. Let me know your thoughts, okay? Now, if she's already got an attorney, say that she may want to talk to her attorney about these options. Share them with your attorney if you want. Find out what they think. There's so many ways to negotiate. If you see my prior videos, I indirectly address these. Do not negotiate by position. I see a lot of guys do that. It's 50% or we're going to trial, or I keep the house or we're going to trial. Instead, remember that negotiating in and of itself is the product rather than the number. You know, of my clients, there hasn't been one unsatisfactory outcome for them, at least not under my watch. That's because I study patterns. What works, what doesn't, and in divorce and custody patterns, they tend to repeat itself. Now, while not 100% fact, cases that tend to be high in conflict and possibly go to a restraining order, they include, first, if your ex wasn't close to her father. Second, if your ex had prior kids from an absentee dad. Third, if your ex was raised by a single mom. Fourth, if you didn't have a dad, you're a risk factor in giving up the fighting, while at the same time, bitching about child support. These are just patterns. You know, when I first started off, I prepared so much for this because I had to get it right that I even looked into mathematical models predicting human behavior, specifically game theory. And there is one game theory called tit for tat. First, you start off kind, and then it was your opponent, and hopefully they remain that way. Probably won't. Second, your opponent, if they do something wrong, you retaliate. Third, you forgive quickly and continue cooperating. Fourth, Your opponent does something wrong again, then you retaliate, but be very clear and transparent as to your intent, along with the consequences should they continue as dirty tactics. I didn't know about these at the time that I got divorced. In hindsight, I was way too lenient, but it was when I did retaliate and became clear about the consequences to her doing something wrong when within 3 months, we were divorced. I guess you could say I unwittingly played tit for tat. Gentlemen, today we went through a shitload of information because, well, I had to get this right. But the unfortunate circumstance is that through video, I could only offer my guidance, not my coaching, because there's a lot of moving parts. And right now, the children, they have the most to lose, and the attorneys, they have the most to gain. As per your ex, believe me, 100% custody is not only unrealistic, but she's going to quickly get overwhelmed with the 100% custody because it's not easy. In my heart, I hope that after watching this video, you put the energy and schedule a talk because you have much more to lose than she does. Right now, she's probably making all the rules and the back and forth, and that's a big expense in time and in thousands. Make your life easier. Just click here to schedule a free and confidential consultation or go to the comments section, join our Facebook group and schedule a one-on-one. And let's both you and I figure this mess out. Thank you very much.